We are discussing a hospital modernization and expansion project in St.Gallen, Eastern Switzerland. The hospital is a very large, multi-phase, $600 million complex. You won a design competition in 2009. And from start to finish, it will take about 20 years to complete it.
Yes.
Let's start with your vision, which you called Come Together, just like the Beatles song. What are the main points, if you could describe that?
Sure. First of all, we talk about an extension. The hospital is already existing there for, let's say, 100 years already. And it's grown over these 100 years. It's a sort of a campus-like site. It's quite big, and it's quite in the city center of St. Gallen. Come together, first of all, means bringing together the old and the new. Quite simple. We are talking about two institutions. The one that is already on the site is the Cantonal Hospital St. Gallen. That's a quite big one. That's mainly for adult people. And we have a second institution that's the Children's Hospital of Eastern part of Switzerland. And that is right now located about 500 meters beside this area. And it will take place also now on the site of the Cantonal Hospital.
This project is like a city within a city. You compared planning it to a game of Tetris. Apart from expected garage, operating room, patient rooms, it also features a restaurant, a roof garden, a helipad. If you could describe these hospitals, these two hospitals' main programmatic components.
First of all, it's important to understand that the existing hospital on the site is a building mass that is like positioned partly in a socle, in a base, and in two high-rise buildings. I think it works pretty well on the site because the socle is not so high and it somehow links or plays with the surrounding buildings that are 3 to 4 stories high. And then we have parts of the program defined within the towers that somehow form an ensemble, a group of towers. We have a lot of treatment areas placed in the socle where the horizontal movement is necessary. So like operation rooms and intensive care stations. On the other hand, we have, let's say, the recreational part of the hospital where the bedrooms are mainly placed and also office spaces, and those are placed in those towers.
This project started as a competition, but I understand that even before the competition, there was already a master plan approved, and you proposed a different vision.
For this project, of course, a master plan was established, and it was like the base for the competition. And mainly what the master plan, the original master plan said was that we have like this campus and we have like a main street quite close to the campus site. So at the moment, the hospital is like a hospital in the Green Park. And the original master plan tended to place the new extension building closer to the main street. So that would have meant that the green belt that is necessary now or important for the understanding of the concept of the hospital in the park would have been partly destroyed for the placing of this new building. So what I had in mind is that this notion of a hospital in the park is still the goal. So therefore, not close to the street, but within the heart of the area. this was like the first decision in terms of the location of the building, the new one. The second decision was that the master plan had the idea to place all the program in a mass, in a huge, compact building mass, let's say about 5 to 7 stories high, and covering the whole site with this huge building block. So we extended the existing socle. So the new building is also a combination of a socle. The socle is 3 stories high, and 2 new high-rise buildings. And I think that works pretty well because the socle is somehow playing with the neighborhood and with the existing part of the hospital. And the towers are like extending the group of already existing high-rise buildings. So for me, at least, it seems pretty obvious that this kind of concept is a kind of continuation of what is already there.
You said people should feel comfortable here. We want to take away their fear of visiting the hospital. And you also said, I'm fascinated by hotel lobbies, which I understand were your main inspiration. If you could talk about this main idea.
When I look back, I quite often have memories of a hospital that is not really a pleasant place to be. It's a hard kind of atmosphere. It's not a pleasant place. For me, I try to turn this upside down and to somehow achieve a state of a hospital atmosphere that is pleasant, where you feel good. For this, for me, the architecture of hotels, hotel lobbies, was a very important reference, because I believe that the hotel lobby is like a huge living space, a warm, cozy place to be, to stay, and to somehow, well, let's say, also a bit to take away this fear of being in a hospital.
You grew up in the same town, St.Gallen, and as a teenager, you were treated at this very hospital when you broke your arm, when you were 14, I understand. Did that experience have any effect on your proposal?
I grew up about 10 kilometers distance from this hospital in a small village. Well, maybe yes, Vladimir. It might be that kind of experience is very deeply stored in the circle of life. And at a certain point, when the competition was published, I could imagine that this kind of very deep and experience from my childhood came up again in terms of, well, why not take part in this competition and try to bring up good solutions for what I experienced, let's say, 25 years ago, maybe, in that case. It's a bit like completing a circle. I also worked abroad and studied abroad, so I came back to Zurich, and with this project, I'm quite close to the place where I grew up. And yeah, that's why I would say it's a homecoming, a move.
I want to talk about your color scheme, which is very kind of reserved. It ranges from beige to bronze to black. There are no bright colors. I wonder why.
In my architecture, I try to use the material as it is. Stone, let's say marble, or wood. And for me, that's the best if the material has an own expression, an own color, an own attitude. And I accept that. So I don't like to paint the wood, for instance. So the windows in the towers, they're wooden windows. So for me, that's perfect. when it comes then to use colors, for instance, for metalwork, for ceilings, for other parts of the architecture that are made out of metal, I usually work with a kind of range, starting with a white color and ending with a black. And then again, the question is, what else does it need, the interior? And for this, I then decided in the specific hospital project to use the floors as a layer that might be colored. So we selected some Corbusier colors and used them in combination with the materials and the mentioned scala from white to gray to black. And so the intention is to somehow create a system that is somehow balanced. It's not a noisy, it's a quiet interior.
Architecture of the project of this hospital is kind of, I would say, missing. Cube-like, there are cube-like cantilevers, exposed ceiling. There are technical mechanisms that are used as design elements. If you could touch on that.
I work like a kind of time traveler. So that means in relation to architectural history, I like to move back and forth. I'm picking up from this history what I need for my own work. I try to achieve a certain state of timeless architecture. Part of this is trying to understand good references, trying to understand also in history what are good examples that somehow might lead to something, let's say, new, but also respecting the old. And in the best case, to somehow generate something, I would say, unknown, known. For instance, we used marble for this project. Natural stone is, I guess, the oldest building material in our history. And I think it's a fantastic material. So quite early in this project, I decided to use natural stone in the public space. This was like the first decision to say, okay, I mark the public space with natural stone. Like you know it in churches, for instance, or public buildings, old historic public buildings. They work pretty well because the stone is really lasting forever. That's what I like about it. On the other hand, in terms of the entrance hall, which is 32 meters wide, there is no natural light in the middle. So I came up with the idea to lighten the stone from the back. So it's a combination of new technology, the latest, with the oldest material. And what I create is, as we talked before about this achievement of trying to establish, let's say, kind of hotel lobby-like atmosphere.
There is also great focus on details. You design door and window handles, individual pieces of furniture, light fixtures. There is a kind of singular design vision, harmonious design. There is this sense of Gesamtkunstwerk approach. If you could talk about that.
Yeah. Viennese architects from the pre-modernist phase, for me, they somehow work like a role model because they also used to understand their work as a whole. So they started with the city side or the urban scale, and they brought it down to the furniture, to the lamp, and also to the door handle. And with this kind of experience, I opened my own office. And from the beginning, I try to achieve this kind of state, what you name the Gesamtkunstwerk, or let's say the whole architecture, that if it works perfectly, you are able to really scale up and down. And that's what I'm trying to do, because I really believe that that's a good way to somehow, have, of course, the control under what you are doing, but also to somehow, let's say, find a kind of language within the whole, from the big scale to the small. For the hospital project, we then designed an own door handle. I think it's one of the smallest parts. It's one of the only parts that you really touch. The door handle is a very important part of the architecture, and it's a kind of link between the architecture and the human body.
When discussing your architecture, you use words and phrases such as clarity, consistency, grit, modularity, structural regularity, restraint, spirit of optimism. How else would you describe your work, and what kind of architecture do you try to achieve?
Very important part of my work is the material. So it's one of the bases of our work, that we try to really understand what the material partly maybe also requires. The other one, as I mentioned, is the history, that I believe that what we are doing is part of the history. We are like in a line with others. We somehow have a certain responsibility for being part of that line within a kind of evolution of architecture. I believe that every building site is already existing. So in any case, your project, your intervention is a kind of extending what is already there, trying to continue with those characters, parameters that are already existing. So that knowing the site is, I would say, one of the really important facts and aspects of the design process.
There is a chapter in one of your books titled Promoting Healing Through Architecture. What would you say is the essence of such an approach?
The architecture can support the process of healing. So one aspect that is discussed and also invented in our project is to maximize the relation to nature. So we have like a green space surrounding the hospital complex. The next step is that through this kind of hierarchy of building mass, we created a huge soccer plate, and the fifth facade is a park. Also, we came up with the idea to use wallpapers, like historic wallpapers containing floral motifs. And overall, what is really important is the daylight. The feedbacks we get from the people, from the patients, from the staff members, it's mainly very positive. And I was, for instance, attending an open door event last year. So on one Sunday, just before the opening, the hospital, the first big part of the hospital project, was open to the public. And I was also walking with all these people for some hours. And quite often I somehow heard this saying, well, it looks like a hotel.